Hey there, Thunderwolves. Welcome to your next quiz review for Pre-Algebra B. This review will be covering the second half of Chapter 5. That is sections 5.5 through 5.7. Now, as a reminder, you are allowed to use calculators on this section, so please make sure to come prepared with your calculator on quiz day. What we're going to do now is work through the study guide that you were assigned and use it to go over the different question types that we may see on the quiz. So the first one we're going to start off with is number 1. If you've already completed your study guide, then that is the best way to use this review. Use it as a check to see if your steps match mine. If you have not yet done your study guide, please go do that first before watching this video. Now, for the first one, we have -12/13. They want us to write the fraction or mixed number as a decimal, rounded to the nearest thousandth. Now, remember, we've said it's very important that you're always reading the directions clearly so you know which place value they want you to round to, so you know what operation you might need to be using, and just so you know what they're asking you to do. So we're going to read the directions. It's asking us to round to the thousandth, and we have -12/13. So as a reminder, we would plug in 12 divided by 13, and we get 0.923076923. Very long. Now, first thing I want to do is remember this was a negative fraction, so my decimal is going to be negative. -0.92307. But they asked me to round it to the thousandths place. So this is not the answer I'm going to circle. I'm going to count tenths, hundredths, thousandths. And the neighbor next door is a 0. So our final answer is -0.923. And that's how you would leave it. Now, the things I will look for when I grade quizzes is, do you have the correct sign? If it's negative, do you have the negative sign? And is it correctly rounded to the noted place value? All right. Now, the next type of question you will see is a comparison question. They're asking you to insert the correct symbols to make each sentence a true statement. Now, for number 3, we're not going to do this, but I do want to remind you, if you have 2 negative decimals that you're comparing, you want to flip the inequality at the end. So you compare as usual, and then once you have your sign, whether it's this or this, you flip it at the end because they're both negative. Now, the one that we're going to do together, 0.293 compared to 5/17. When we are trying to compare numbers, we want to get them into the same form. So for me, I'd prefer to work with decimals. So I'm going to keep this as 0.293, but this fraction I'm going to divide 5 divided by 17. So now I can turn that into 0.294. Now I'm rounding it to 4 just because that's the same number of place values in my other number. To compare, I'm going to stack them up, 0.294 and 0.293. Compare, compare, compare. 4 and 3 are the differentiators. 4 is greater than 3. So 0.293 is less than 0.294. But for my final answer, I'm going to rewrite it with the numbers in the form they were given to me in. So this would be 0.293 is less than 5/17. And that would be our answer. Now, along the same lines, the next question type is asking us to order our decimals from smallest to largest. So when we do that, again, we want to get all of our numbers into the same form. And for me personally, it's easier to work with decimals. So I'm going to start by converting these into decimal form. So 18 over 11, that's 18 divided by 11. That's 1.636. And then 1.63. And then the last one, 19 divided by 12, 1.583. So if we're putting these in order from smallest to largest, always look and see what direction we're going. Smallest to largest, I'm going to look and see the smallest number is 1.583, then 1.63, and then 1.636. So now my numbers are listed in order from smallest to largest. Next, we're going to use our decimals to simplify some expressions. So the first one we have, number 7. The important thing I want to point out about this one is what to do with the negative inside the parentheses that are being squared. So when we are working with a decimal that is being squared but has a negative sign inside the parentheses, that means our answer is technically a negative times a negative, which is a positive. So we would do 2.3 times 2.3, and we get positive 5.29 minus 1.4. Now let's do that subtraction, minus 1.4, and we get 3.89. Remember PEMDAS when you are working through these expressions, our order of operations. That's why I did exponents first, then I subtracted. Now here, the most common question I get at this step is, do I distribute? But we're not going to distribute because we don't have any variables in the parentheses. So we can solve what's inside the parentheses first. 6.5 minus 5.6, and we get 0.9. Now we bring down the other decimal. So we did parentheses, that's the P. There's no exponents. Next is multiplying and dividing left to right. All we have is multiplying, so 0.9 times 0.9, and we get 0.81. And that would be our answer there. All right, let's keep going. Next, we're going to look at number 11 from the study guide. Now, number 11 was an evaluation question that asked you to replace variables with the given decimal values. So, for number 11, they've given us x divided by z minus 2y, and then they've told us what x, y, and z are. With questions like this, please be very careful to look at your signs and your decimal locations, because the number one mistake happens when just copying the numbers down into the problem. So x is 1.6, z is negative 2.4, minus 2 times y is 0.3. So now I'm going to use PEMDAS to simplify this. 1.6 divided by negative 2.4. That's going to be negative 0.67 minus 2 times 0.3. So now I do my multiplication. 2 times 0.3 is 0.6. So negative 0.67 minus 0.6. So now if I combine those, we get negative 1.27. And that would be my final answer. So I got here by using my order of operations after substituting in my values. Now, the next type of question you might see is an area question. Now, area we know for rectangles is a simple length times width equals area. But if we're talking about triangles, we've learned that area equals half the base times the height. So I like to turn this into decimals. So I'm going to replace half with 0.5. The base of this triangle is 5.2. And the height of the triangle is 2.1. Now when I multiply that together, 5.2 times 0.5 times 2.1, we get area is 5.46 inches. Remember, for your measurements, we have to include the labels. Now, we will also be covering equations in this chapter quiz. So for number 16, here's one of the more complex equations you might see on the quiz. I know it's complex because I see 1, 2, 3 occurrences of the same variable. So first thing I want to do is combine all these like terms I see. So this is negative 3x plus 0.6 equals negative 4x minus 0.9. Now we want to combine like terms on the same side of the equal sign. So to do that, I'm going to get my x to the left. Negative 3x plus 4x is positive x plus 0.6 equals, now notice the minus sign in front of the 0.9. When we eliminated negative 4x, that negative or minus sign is still there. It didn't go with the x. So this would be negative 0.9. Now we subtract 0.6 from both sides to isolate our variable. So x equals negative 0.9 minus 0.6 is negative 1.5. So there's our answer for x. X equals negative 1.5. The next one we're going to do is another of the more complex equations you might see. And this one is a little more complex because it has parentheses that do have a variable inside. So we will need to distribute to solve this equation. So that would become 3x minus 3.3 equals 5x minus 5.3. Now we combine like terms. So this time, if I subtract 5x over here, I'm going to end up with negative 2x, and I'd rather have a positive x. So subtract negative 3x from both sides. That eliminates it on the left, leaving negative 3.3 equals 5 minus 3 is 2x minus 5.3. Now we add 5.3 to get the x closer to alone. Negative 3.3 plus 5.3 is 3.3 minus 5.3 is positive 2.0 equals 2x. Divide by 2. Oops, canceled out the wrong one. X equals 1. So x is 1 for number 17. Now the last one we're going to go over, or the last two we'll go over, is another equation where we're solving for the variable x. So this time I'm going to combine like terms by adding 50x to both sides. That eliminates it over here and leaves 0.81 equals negative 40 plus 50 is 10x minus 0.48. Now let's subtract 0.81 to get it to the other side. And I want you to notice when you do that. Oops, we did the wrong thing. If we do that, we end up with nothing on this side, 0, and everything over here. So instead of subtracting 0.81, our better move is going to be to add 0.48. Now that will eliminate it over here, leaving our 10x alone. Okay, so that strategic decision, 0.81 plus 0.48, now is 1.29, and that's equal to 10x. Now x is almost alone, we just have to divide by 10. 1.29 divided by 10 is 0.129. So that would be our answer for x. Now the last question type you will see is our measures of central tendency, and those are mean, median, and mode. The question also directs us to state if there are any outliers. So we're going to do number 20, and we're looking for the mean, median, mode, and any outliers. Now, to answer these questions, the first thing I want to do is put my numbers in numerical order. So I see 21, that's pretty small, and I cross it out after I use it so I don't make mistakes. Then I have 45, another 45, 60, 64, 86, and 86. Now, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. So this would be our middle number. The middle number is the median, so the median is 60. Now the mode is the number that appears the most often, and we have 2 of those, 45 and 86. So both of those are the modes because they appear the same number of times. Now outliers would be any numbers that are very far from the rest of the group. And for this group, they're counting by 20s, but most of these numbers are 40 or above. So I'd say 21 is our outlier. And lastly, the mean is where we find the sum of the numbers and then divide it by the number of items. So for our sum, let's combine 21 plus 45 plus 45. 60 plus 64 plus 86 plus 86. So our sum of all of the numbers is 407, and we said there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers, 7 items. So 407 divided by 7, our median, or our mean I should say, is 58.14. But it tells us to round to the nearest tenth. So that's going to be 58.1. And there is my final answer. So if that felt good, you are well prepared for your upcoming quiz. I encourage you to do a little final studying on your own, and of course, come see me in the Math Center if you have questions or need any help. Great job. Keep up the good work and all of the effort you've been putting into this year, and I know it will pay off when I see you next. Have a great afternoon. Bye.